Hello and good evening, I'm Melisa Idris.
And I'm Sharaad Kuttan.
You're watching Consider This, the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. Tonight on the show we have Harry Tan. He's the Secretary General of the National Union of the Teaching Profession, Peninsula Malaysia, better known as NUTP, which is the biggest workers' union in the country and looks to protect teachers' interests when it's in matters related to the teaching profession. Harry, welcome to the show. It's really good to have you here and we appreciate your time tonight. Now, NUTP has raised the issue of the burden of paperwork that has been placed on teachers, as teachers have to submit, and you claim, NUTP claims that it interferes with the actual task of teaching. Now, I want to begin the show, Harry, with a better understanding of the current realities that teachers face right now. Maybe you can tell us, what do teachers face on the job?
All right, before I talk about what teachers face on the job, I just want to make a slight correction to what you said. That is about the burden of paperwork upon the teachers. Now, I want to make it clear that we are not talking about the paperwork that the teacher has to do, for example, like in assessment or reporting about the student's progress in his field of study. We are very concerned and we are very against work that is not related to teaching. That is what we are against. For example, what they call filling of numerous forms about the situation in the school, about dengue, about the food quality, things that are not what the teacher is supposed to do.
So this is school-related, is it a monitoring system? Why would all these extra tasks put upon teachers?
Administrative tasks,
it seems. I believe that maybe someone has to report to the parliament. So as long as we are in the school, so the teachers are just asked to carry out all those reporting and giving it to the senior or the upper echelons of the administration. Now the point is that teachers can also do that. It's not a problem for them, but you take them away from their actual task or face time with their students. So this is what the union is very against, and we hope that the upper powers may help us relieve us of all this unnecessary or irrelevant work.
Can you give us a sense of how much of a burden it is? I mean, in terms of a teacher's workload, what proportion of a workload is this type of paperwork?
All right, just a case in point. Now is currently the current grounds of the teacher that they have to fill in a job description. Now, to fill in the job description online is not a problem. It takes only about 5 minutes or 10 minutes or even half an hour at most. But the trouble is that when they want to fill in, 420,000 teachers from all over the country fills into that system. What happens is that we get complaints from our members that the data is not safe. Some have kept on keying in the same data 11, 12 times and the data is not safe. So their whole time is wasted on trying to just to fill in some information that the upper echelons, which they can get from maybe a sample of the administrators, rather than asking the whole 420,000 teachers going into the system, filling up the information, and at the end of the day, the information is not there when they want it.
Yeah, so it seems to be in some ways a kind of failure of technology, but also let's just talk about this. I mean, this is a grouse by the teachers, and it's now filtered through up to the union. Have you, forwarded these concerns to the relevant minister, and have they responded?
Okay, I appeal to our beloved minister to have engagement with us. We are so big, and he has yet to engage with us. Since he's been appointed, there's only once he engaged with my president, and that was also online, where he asked about our opinion about the UPSR and PT3 exams to be cancelled this year. That's the only time. Right. So other than that, we have been writing in numerous letters to him, we have been appealing through the press, but the minister has yet to engage us. Maybe he's busy.
So I mean, I was just going to ask you why. You seem to have said that you think he's busy. Do you feel that he hasn't given NUTP his time of day?
We pray that he gives us some time, because we are big. And we are big, we have problems. And when we have problems, we need engagements. We want to resolve matters. We are not in the business of politics. We are in the business of making sure that our students get the best out of the system.
Harry, how is this a long-standing problem? A problem that predates this particular administration? We go back from the Perikatan time back to the Pakatan time, and then before that to Barisan Nasional. Is this a problem that actually goes back even to the BN days?
Yes, this is a perennial problem. All right. So,
and the response has been the same throughout all these administrations?
There were attempts to try to help us out, and we thank some ministers, even they help us in certain areas. For example, in the promotion of teachers. So in fact, the teachers, we are just, I think, if I'm not mistaken, we just third behind the doctors and the engineers in the what do you call it, the civil service. So in terms of promotion, in terms of pay, we are very, very good. We thank the government for that. But at the same time, our professional business, core business, must be looked after so that everybody gets a good deal out of it. If not, the ROI is thrown down the drain.
How much of these problems can be resolved at the school level through a good headmaster, taking on the concerns of the teachers?
We agree that if there's a good headmaster, but unfortunately he is also tied with many administrative dues that are put forth to him. So his hands are tied. So for example, if the senior administrations wants him to fill up certain forms or ask the teachers to do certain things, he just has to direct his teachers to do them. And he's not really that powerful guy to say, no, I don't want to do this, cannot. Because he has to answer to his superiors.
So you're saying there's not enough autonomy at a school level?
Yes and no. All right. So yes, in the sense that there's autonomy for him to make sure that the school runs well, to make sure that if there are problems arising from the school, he is able to handle it. But no, at the same time, because as I said, the irrelevant work, he is rather powerless to stop this irrelevant work from falling onto the hands of the teachers.
Okay. Well, Harry, we're going to take a quick break, but after this, we're going to come back and talk a little bit about teaching at a time of COVID-19. Well, that's coming up in just a couple of minutes. Stay tuned to consider this. Hi, if you've just joined us, you're watching Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris, with me is Sharaad Kuttan, and we're speaking tonight to Harry Tan. He's the SecGen of the National Union of the Teaching Profession Peninsular Malaysia, better known as NUTP. All right, Harry, let's come to how the classroom has changed in a time of COVID-19. Talk to us a little bit about how the teaching profession has changed to adapt to all the physical distancing measures, and how NUTP responded to the MCO, which required teachers to conduct lessons online, remote learning in teaching.
Okay. During the MCO period, the teachers were asked by the Ministry of Education to conduct online classes. Basically, we were thrown into the deep pool. And the teachers, I think they did fairly well with whatever resources that they have, although we have been clamoring with the Ministry of Education to ask them to be retrained in the field of maybe puppetry, entertainment, applications, and so on and so forth. So what happened was we conducted a survey at that point of time. Out of 10,500 respondents, we had 93% saying that they wanted face-to-face teaching with them. So then we sort of spark off an international race, whereby we work with the University of Malaysia, and also we set up a task force with from those lecturers teaching or in these teacher training institutes. And they have set up pedagogy, and I think I'm glad to report on World Teachers Day, we are going to launch the books on this pedagogy, which we say, we titled it the precautionary school physical distancing model during COVID-19 pandemic. So just to give you an idea of what we have done, we actually are not to say advocating, but we are telling the teachers that, what we are going to do now in this period of time is that it's against what we have been taught before. We have been taught to teach the students through love, sharing and caring. But now it's totally on the opposite side. We must teach them not to share their things. We must teach them you can't care for each other by hugging them, and you only can care by distancing yourself, and then sharing, and then for example, you need to ask them to come and do group work. We say, no, you cannot do group work, you must do individual work. So it's no longer teaching them to be part of society. We are actually teaching them to be individual units of society.
But of course, I think the rationale there is quite is based on science and the science of the spread of the virus. So yes, you want to share, but you don't want to share the virus, I guess, is what is the primary lesson for all of us at this point in time. I do want to ask you, Harry, this is very interesting because it suggests that teachers not just responding to what's happening in the world, but also thinking about kind of intellectual input into responses and solutions. I do want to ask, though, there is this idea that when it comes to the quality of education in Malaysia, that while kids go through 12 years of education, of schooling, they only get 9 years of education, and that has been a very popular way of understanding this teaching profession. It seems very damning, and I think perhaps the burden of that has fallen largely on the shoulders of teachers. And I want you to respond to that. Is it fair to blame teachers for the lack of performance in terms of education in our schools?
Well, now, if you're to measure our performance based on academic results, on the number of A's that you get, I think that is not a fair yardstick. You should actually look at what we want out of the students. So if we are talking about wholesome education, so if that person becomes a road sweeper, and he becomes a road sweeper who is morally right, who sticks to his job, to his time, and then he has a family, he raises his family up, well, I think it's successful. The teacher has taught him a good thing. But if you are talking about just only A's, getting A's, I think then it's not right.
Okay, I'm very curious to know about the teacher quality and what constitutes good quality teaching, because it seems that there seems to be, I guess, a very different perception of what constitutes good quality teaching from teachers versus, say, the people who inspect schools. So if I were to quote the National Education Blueprint, 63% of schools rated themselves as having good or excellent teaching or learning practices, compared with just 13% by school inspectors. What accounts for that difference in perception as to what constitutes good quality teaching?
All right, I believe that the emphasis by the school inspectors mainly lie in the academic results of the students, all right, in the attendance of the school, all right. So these are certain indicators that they go by. But if you look at it now, if the school is in the slum area, of course the attendance will never be 100% or would it be good, because you have to deal with social problems. But to see the students that are there in that particular school, for them to come to that school, even if they don't score A's based on the yardstick of the inspectors, at least if they are in school and then they are doing something beneficial, something that they can use in the later part of their lives, I think that will be a success. But to measure that, it is always a challenge.
Is there a dialogue between the schools and school inspectors? I mean, if there is such a chasm between them in terms of perception of what is important, you just outlined what you think is important, shouldn't there be a conversation and some way of a consensus at least?
Well, this is where our pain lies. This is where the difference between our superior officers and those at the ground level, this is where we have difference, because we understand it is also the push of the society. The society is not interested that my son comes to school, has a 100% record. I want to see whether he gets an A for his UPS or he gets an A for his SPM. If he gets anything less, I think the teacher is no good. We send him to tuition teacher. So that is the problem that that is encompassing the whole society.
Okay, so that includes also, as you mentioned, parental expectation.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, but we'll come back and continue this conversation on Consider This. Don't go anywhere, stay tuned. Thank you for staying with Consider This. Sharaad Kuttan and I this evening speaking to Harry Tan, Secretary General of the National Union of the Teaching Profession Peninsula Malaysia, NUTP. Harry, I want to ask you about the challenges for professional development for Malaysian teachers. Are there significant opportunities for career advancement within the teaching profession?
There are because we have one of the best career advancement system in the civil service. We have what is known as a time-based promotion. That means after a certain time, the teachers are promoted, and then at the end of the day, he can be teaching in an ordinary classroom, and he draws the same pay as the state education director.
Okay. Do you think that the public and those perhaps who are interested or thinking about career opportunities understand that teaching is a profession that could result in a very nice paycheck at the end of the month? I'm wondering whether we are doing enough to absorb the best possible teachers into the system.
Okay, for the past 10 years, we have been getting the best from the system, from the graduates that come out from the university. Because of our pay system, and also, for example, I give you some statistics, like for example, within these 10 years, we have like 80 to 100,000 applying for only maybe 3,000, 2,000 vacancies. And for them to actually apply in the first place, they must be the top 30% of the university graduates from the country.
So there are more applicants than jobs available?
Not more, extremely more.
Extremely more.
So and this obviously has to do with our current economic situation as well, right? And graduate unemployment being one. Or is it a push into the teaching profession, or is it a pull factor that's really operating here?
This I have to congratulate and thank the government, because they have done a good job in giving the teacher a pay that commensurate with their qualification, with their role in society. That one, they have done it well. So we are, as I said, we are one of the best paying professionals in the system, and that's why there are the number of graduates seeking to be a teacher is tremendous, is huge, and the vacancies are very few.
Well, okay, that sounds like a really good sort of situation, because it means you can cherry pick the best brains and the people with the right aptitude to get into the profession.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you, there's some criticism of the teaching profession. On this show, we dealt with the question of chronic absenteeism in the state of Sabah. And this is the subject of a civil suit, I believe, right now against teachers who don't turn up to school. I mean, they turn up at school, but they don't actually come to class. Are you aware of such problems, and how is NUTP responding to these charges?
First of all, NUTP does not condone teachers who are absent from school without reason, or who skip classes, or who do not do their work. We are very against these teachers, and we label them as, like any other profession, they are black sheep. All right. So if these are the teachers, I believe that the system must remove them through whatever provisions given out by the general orders. So that is our stand.
Disciplinary measures for teachers, how stringent are they? How easily is it to take disciplinary action against a teacher? Because as I understand it, teacher absenteeism constitutes 55% of the kind of complaints against teachers. I think it had the term cikgu tidak hadir, the phrase was being used. So in terms of looking at how to discipline a teacher, who is in charge of that? Is that the school? Is it the school, the headmaster, the school administrator, or is it, does it progress to a higher level?
Yeah, it's basically the school principal or the head of department, normally the headmaster. They will have to ensure that the teachers are there in the class for the students. So there is no two ways about it. If the teacher is absent without reason, then of course action can be instituted against him.
You know, Harry, there's another problem, and it's probably a little more in the kind of grey zone, which is the issue of teachers being resistant to change, new methodologies, not being welcoming of younger staff coming in with new, ways of teaching. And this has been said to me, at least, teaching English, for instance. So English teachers are seen as extremely outgoing, and they love to get their kids to sing and dance, maybe go out of the class, and the older teachers don't like it. And there's a kind of pressure to quieten down. And so the pressure to keep to the old ways and not do new things. Would you agree that this is happening in our schools?
Now, any teacher worth his grain of salt would definitely be an agent of change. So if there are new ways of teaching, or there are new methods, he will most welcome it. Now you have brought in a very particular, or you have zoned in into a very particular group of teachers, the English teacher. All right, now I want to explain that most of the teachers, English teachers in schools, are not trained to teach English. They are asked to teach English because they can speak English. That's a big problem. That's a big problem that we face.
Can you explain the difference?
Okay, for example, if a teacher is taught or in the option of teaching mathematics, but because there is a dire shortage of English teachers, for example, in the state of Kelantan, last year we had the statistics that there's a shortage of 500 English teachers, all right, English trained teachers. Now, if you were to look into state of Kelantan, the teachers that are teaching English, they are not fully trained in TESOL, teaching of English as a second language. They are actually maybe a mathematics teacher or a history teacher who can speak English. Because there's a shortage, they are asked to fill in the gap. And at the point of time, you see, when a mathematics teacher teaches English, he will use the formula method. Okay, you use the formula method because that is how a mathematics teacher will teach. Then if you ask a history teacher to teach, he will use the rote learning method.
Memorization.
You memorize. But if you ask an English teacher, yes, come, let's go out. We go and into the field, we have fun, we have dances. We use English in practice.
Okay, but why do we have such a dire shortage of English teachers in the first place?
I'm sorry, sir, I can't answer you. You have to ask my bosses.
So
they only can provide you the answer.
This is a question of the ministry making the allocations. What is it, when you talk about bosses, who are you talking about?
Ministry.
So
you need to ask them, why is there this problem?
You are within the teaching profession, you have observed, where are the gaps? Where is there a shortage? Where is it?
I would like to reserve that for my minister.
Do you think, so is this a political problem? Again, the perennial issue of English being somehow seen as a threat to the national language, to Bahasa Malaysia. Is that what it is? Is that what is stopping the political will to resolve the question of shortage of English teachers?
If it is a political question, you need to ask the politicians.
We will definitely look to have the politicians on to answer that question.
Yeah, even if it's an empty seat, we'll ask them.
Okay, but I do want to say in the last couple of minutes that we have left, I want to talk a little bit about educational reform. Now, if that is on the agenda for this current government and the near future, what is it that teachers need? What is it that teachers want? You mentioned a bit earlier retraining, but if you were to expand that, Harry, very quickly, what is it that you would encapsulate?
I think if I can encapsulate what I've spoken for the past half an hour, the teachers only want to teach face-to-face time with their students. All the other things must be taken away. And if the people at the top can't do that, then the magic in the class can never happen. That is what I'm trying to say.
All right. Thank you so much for being on the show. We really do appreciate you being here to answer our questions.
Thank you very much.
That's
you.
all the time we have on this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris.
And I'm Sharaad Kuttan, signing off the evening.
Thank you so much for watching, folks. Good night.